Hi guys, welcome back to another video. So if you are a chess fan, you must have clearly seen this clip of Hikaru Nakamura where he is reacting to a game of Levon Ronian. So let's first see the clip. So you can clearly see the face of Hikaru Nakamura in this position and he is reacting to a game of Levon Aronian. Now you can see the disgusting expressions that Hikaru Nakamura has in his position. He is staring down Levon Aronian, thinking to himself that what is this position and how we have arrived here. And he is so frustrated with that position that he actually decides to get up and maybe walk away from the board. So that was the video. And now, so let's see actually why or what made Hikaru Nakamura react the way he did in that position. That game is actually game number 10 from Gibraltar chess tournament. It is a tournament played in Gibraltar, of course, and the clip is actually from 2019, and the game is between Levon Aronian, who was with the white pieces, and David Howell, who was with the black pieces. Now it was the last round, but neither David Howell nor Levon Aronian had any chance of winning the tournament, but if they manage to win this game, maybe they could take home some extra cash, which is always nice. So let's see what made Hikaru give such extraordinary reactions, and let us start the game. So Levon Aronian here decides to start with the move of e4, and since David Howell now has to play for a win, instead of going for some e5, he in this position decides to play the move c6, and this is known as now the Caro-Kann defense. So the move c6 against e4 is actually beginning of the Caro-Kann, and you can see that black is right now not occupying any central squares but just pressuring this central square with his pawn, and maybe in the future he can expand with a move like d5. So right now white can take the full center, so Levon Aronian of course decides to take the full center, and David Howell replies with d5, immediately striking in the center. Levon Aronian decides to take back, and we have takes from David Howell. Now you can see that immediately both the pawns are exchanged, so that's why this is known as the exchange variation of the Caro-Kann. This is usually has a tendency to be boring, but let's see how this game proceeds. So first we have bishop to d3 from David Howell, and you can see that this bishop now has this beautiful diagonal wherein it can operate. Maybe if black castles there, it is very good on the diagonal, as we have previously seen. So David Howell proceeds with normal move of knight to c6, that is now attacking. As you can see, the pawn on e5 square, which is currently undefended because previously the queen was defending, but now the bishop is blocking this. So Levon Aronian decides to protect the pawn, and we have this move of queen to c7. Now what this move queen to c7 does, it has couple of ideas. Maybe you can play your knight to f6 square, and then you can play the move of either bishop to let's say f5 or bishop to g4, maybe putting pressure on this queen. Maybe if say knight develops here, let's say if this knight develops here, then you can maybe put your bishop here and you can long castle, and opposite side castling should give you a better chances of an imbalanced game where you can maybe push for a win. So that is the idea with the move of queen to c7, and now we have this move h3, basically stopping all the ideas of putting the bishop here. So now we have this move of g6. You can see from the arrows that now that move is sort of blunting this bishop on this diagonal, and also at the same time you can maybe put this bishop on the g7 square occupying that diagonal. So Levon Aronian actually plays the move of queen to c7, like trying to put pressure on this square, and in this position actually now David Howell plays this very risky move, I would say, of f6. Now you can see that this move of f6 is clearly aimed at playing e5, taking full control of the center, but this move f6, now you can see that it creates a lot of light square weaknesses around the king. You can see that the light square, that is the white square with these green circles, are very weak because of this move of f6. So let's see how Levon Aronian decides to respond to this position. He just brings his knight back because he wants to castle. So we have the move e5 from David Howell, as we had predicted. He decides to take the full central center, and we have the castles and knight g2 e7 from from David Havel. Now you can clearly see that we could go for moves like e5, closing down the position, but that would be actually, white would actually love that, because then maybe the bishop can occupy this diagonal, pinning this knight here. So we don't have that in the game, and instead Levonoron decides to take here. Now rather than taking, actually maybe he could have played moves like queen to b3 or maybe queen to a4, like putting pressure here and here. That could have been one of the moves that he could have played, but he instead goes for this move of takes. And now you can see that black has a very good two central pawns in the center, where white almost has none of his pawns in the center. So white has taken full control of the center. But what Levonoronian's idea in this position was to play the move of c4 in this position, but you can clearly see that this is a very dubious move and is actually a mistake in this position, because you can see that this bishop in this position, if you can see, has no retreating square. Both the pieces, white's pieces, are blocking it, and it can only go ahead. So there is no way for you to get back. So in this, after playing the move c5, you can see that now the bishop even does not have this diagonal to go. It only has this red diagonal that it can go to. But after the move of e4, you can already see that no longer the bishop can move on this diagonal. So Levonoronian has to actually take here, and after takes, play a move like knight to c3. Now you might say that how did a player like Levonoronian, who is one of the strongest players in the world, former member of the 2800 club, how did he miss a move like e5? So I will actually come to that point a bit later in the game, because we will reach a critical position where we can discuss in a better way. So for now, he decides to take here, and we have the move knight to c3. Now taking here with the queen is not any great, because already you are down. Piece getting back a pawn will not do any much great for you. So instead you can maybe compensate for the loss of a pawn with some activity. But David Havel, after Levonoronian's move knight to c3, decides to calmly play the move bishop to g7 and maybe prepare castles. So in this position, actually now Levonoronian plays the move of knight to d5, but David Havel actually, in a brief chat with the interviewer, later mentioned that Levonoronian's original idea in this position was to actually play the move of knight to b5. Now you might ask what is the difference between these two moves of knight to d5 and knight to b5. So the main difference is that this knight to d5 allows the queen to come here, whereas if you play knight to, let's say, b5, the queen can no longer go here. And also you might see now that the queen now only has one square, that is to go to the b8 square. It has to retreat back to the b8 square, and that is actually the move that Levonoronian actually missed when he sacked his piece with the move of c4. Here he missed that in that position the queen can go back. It was very difficult for him to maybe see that position so deep. But okay, he in this position missed that queen can go back, because if you, let's say, decide to go here, then this position is already very dangerous for black. After a move like bishop to d7, you can clearly see that I can just give a check here, and you will have to move your king, and you no longer have a very great position, because let's say if you in this position, after knight gives a check, you decides to go here, and this position is already very dangerous. After I take, I already have your king very dangerously placed, and that could be very good for me. So we do not have anything of that sort in the game, because Levonoronian actually went with the move of knight to d5. And one very interesting point I missed actually to tell you guys is after the knight goes here, this move is very important, because after a move like this I can clearly block with my bishop. So that is the main difference between going to this square and going to this square, because after a move like this you can no longer block with the bishop, and my knight can go here and fork here and here. Now you can see that the same thing happens in this position. Now there are multiple moves you can make. You can go here, you can That is the best move and is played by the David Havel. And again, Levon Aronian goes in with the same idea, and David Havel again plays this move of bishop to e5, blocking this bishop's access here, so that knight can no longer access and fork here and here. So Levon Aronian, now all he has to do is maybe get some pieces into the game and try his best to save the position. That's his best chance. But David Havel calmly decides to take the bishop here. After knight takes, you can see that this queen is being attacked, but it calmly moves to the side and says that I am completely fine in this position, I am now going to castle. But Levon Aronian now completely lashes out with this move of bishop pawn to b4, giving this pawn for free, and David Havel of course accepts the pawn, and now queen goes to b3. Levon Aronian is trying his best to create any sort of chaos, but in this position David Havel just calmly retreats, and we have the move c5, and you can see that now the queen is controlling the square of g8, not allowing David Havel to castle here. But David Havel simply does not care about his king, and he takes the pawn on the c5 square. David Havel is just taking any pawns that Levon Aronian is offering to him, not just pawn, he is taking any material that is being offered to him. And now we have the move knight to c3. Levon Aronian has to now just get his pieces into the game if he wants to have a chance, and maybe try and hope that David Havel blunders, but David Havel is having none of that. He actually plays the move of queen to b4. You can now see that he is offering the queen for the trade, and if Levon Aronian decides, and after knight takes, David Havel would be just up a piece, and the king weakness would not be felt that much. Of course, Levon Aronian does not decide to exchange the queens, and he retreats, and we now have castles from David Havel, and Levon Aronian plays this move of knight to d5, forking sort of the knight and the queen, but you can't fork a knight, so knight decides to take back, and we have knight takes from Levon Aronian as well, and queen decides to play the move of Havel decides to play the move of a3, and we have the move rook to e1, now pressuring this pawn on e4. Now maybe Levon Aronian could have directly taken this pawn, but since you are down a piece, taking pawns will not do any good for you, so he decides to get his final piece into the attack. And after the bishop now protects the pawn on e5, Levon Aronian is now completely busted, because David Havel just tells him, you had your chance of taking the pawn here, but now I am going to just defend this pawn as well, and not going to give you any chance. So now we have the rook going to the e3 square, attacking this queen that is very maybe dubiously placed on a3, because now you can see that this queen does not actually have many square. It does not have a square here, it does not have a square here, not here, not here, not here, and if you let's say go here, then you are under the fire of the rook, and you can't also go here, you can't go here. This is one of the squares you can go to actually, but let's say if you go here, let's say if you decide to go here, then I can play the move knight to c7, and you can see that your queen and rook both are hanging. So in the position actually David Havel, of course, he is in great form. He plays the move queen to a4, and now we have this move of queen to c4 from Levon Aronian, his final try at tricking David Havel. You can see that this king and this queen are now facing each other, and if this knight gives this discovery, then this king that is highlighted as red would be in dangerous position. Let's say if you play a stupid move like this, then already after a move like this, you can see that your rook is hanging and you are in check, so you can't take this knight. So David Havel, of course, he sees that, and he blocks this path of the queen to the king by intermediating with his rook. So we have Levon Aronian anyway decides to give a check with his knight here. Now you can see that the rook cannot take the knight because it is pinned to the king. So David Havel just moves his king, and we have this move of rook to d5 from Levon Aronian, attacking this queen and somehow putting this pressure, trying his best to maybe hold on to this position. Now you can play a sort of moves here. You can go back here, maybe like you can go back here, you can simply like offer a queen trade here. But in this position David Havel actually plays a game killing move, the game ending move. Actually after this move, Levon Aronian is completely busted, because you can see that yeah, you can take my queen, but after I take the queen back, you can see that both your rook as well as your knight are hanging, and you will be completely busted in this position. So, and if you play, let's say you can't play any other move, because you can see that your rook is being attacked twice, so you can't play anything. So Levon Aronian actually in this position decides to that he has to resign here, because he is down material. He is going to get further, he is going to be further loss in material, so he decides to resign here, and David Howell gets his victory and also the sweet cash that he was hoping to get. So that was the game that I wanted to show you guys. Maybe some of you did not know why Hikaru reacted in the way he did in that clip, so I wanted to show this game to you all. Hope you enjoyed this. And the moment actually that we saw in the video was of this position where Levon Aronian had actually played the move b4, and Hikaru was thus disgusted that Levon Aronian is down a piece. He could not figure out that how possibly could this position arise from the exchange French. So that was the video. I hope you liked it, and that's it for this part of the video. I will see you until next time. Bye bye.